Good morning. This is the time and the place for the Planning Hearing Officer hearing for November 5th, 2015. My name is Roger Kiesel, and I'll be conducting the hearing as hearing officer. We have one case on the agenda this morning, and relevant exhibits are posted on the panels located directly behind me. There is one variance application this morning. Under provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.43 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a variance shall be granted if four required findings are present. The four findings include that the strict application of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship inconsistent with the general purposes and intent of the ordinance. The second finding is that there are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved or to the intended use or development of the property that do not apply generally to other property in the same zone or neighborhood. The third finding is that the granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in such zone or neighborhood in which the property is located. And the final finding is that the granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. Findings. If the evidence presented in the application at the hearing meets the criteria just described, then the hearing officer can either approve or impose conditions for approval on the case in question. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Public notice. Notification of the hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to property owners and occupants located within 500 feet of the property, physically posted at the site in question, and placed in the local newspaper. The hearing will proceed as follows. I'll read a description of the application request. I'll read reports received from other city departments or other letters or communications from interested parties. The case planner will then make a brief overview of the case, giving analysis and making a recommendation. The applicant will then be asked to come forward, stating his or her name, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time period. Others in support of or in opposition to the project and interested parties will be asked to come forward to speak. Again, clearly stating their name within a 3-minute time period. Finally, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing comments if desired, and in response to testimony, and is given a 5-minute time limit. The hearing will then be closed and case taken under submission. Decision. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who respond to the public notice, either by speaking at the public hearing or by submitting a written response and have provided their name and mailing address. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Appeals. Under the appeal provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal may obtain forms and brochures on the procedures from Building and Safety, located on the same floor of the building. Speakers cards. If you wish to speak, please write your name and address on one of the speaker forms, which have been provided by the front door, and submit it to our assistant. Okay, I'll just read now a brief description of the case. The location of the case is at 330 Kempton. It's a standards and setback variance. The applicant is Daniel Rolfe. Case planner Brad Cullen. The application for a standards variance to allow a retaining wall to exceed the allowable height within the street front setback, and a setback variance to allow a fence to be located within the street front setback, again located at 330 Kempton Road. And I am going to look for any comments that we received from other departments. Okay. It looks like the engineering department was the only department that had comments, and they were pretty standard comments regarding the case. So I will turn it over to the case planner, Mr. Cullen, to give a brief overview of the project.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Kiesel. As mentioned, the subject project is located at 330 Kempton Road. The property is located in an R1R restricted residential zone, floor area District 2. There are 3 variances being considered today. One is for a standards variance to allow the retaining wall to exceed the maximum allowable height of 7 feet by 13 feet, and the subject retaining wall to exceed a height above the existing grade. The code requirement is 18 inches, and it will exceed the existing grade by 18 inches. And then the third variance is to allow a wrought iron fence within the street front setback. The subject property is approximately 30,310 square feet. It's irregularly shaped. The lot has frontage on Kempton Road and Brockmont and slopes down from Kempton to Brockmont with a series of terraces as the lot goes from north to southwest. The 2-story house with attached 3-car garage is located on the southeastern portion of the lot, and the house and garage are accessed off of Kempton. The property has a grade differential from Kempton Road to Brockmont of approximately 82 feet. As a result of its sloping terrain, the rear of the property consists of narrow terraced gardens linked by walkways and steps. The applicant, as mentioned, is requesting approval of 2 standards and 1 setback variance. The standard variances are to allow the construction of a retaining wall that exceeds the allowable height for retaining walls within the street front setback by 13 feet and to exceed the maximum wall height above the existing grade at the time of construction by 18 inches or 36 inches above the existing grade. In addition, the applicant is proposing to construct a 6-foot high wrought iron fence within the same street front setback. Retaining walls within the street front setback can be a maximum of 7 feet high if decorative. The maximum allowable height for walls above the grade existing at the time of construction is 18 inches. The applicant is adding 2 feet in height of fill between the back of the new retaining wall and the existing yard in order to have a level yard. The horizontal distance for this fill is approximately 5 feet across. The 2 requests for standard variances would provide a wall high enough to support the yard above the street level on Brockmont. The proposed wrought iron fence would be about 4 feet from the street front property line at its closest point, and the fence would act as a safety rail due to the 22-foot drop from the yard down to Brockmont Drive below. Staff believes that all 4 findings can be made in a positive way for the 2 standards and 1 setback variance. The proposed wall will match the existing one that's out there now in terms of appearance. The proposal for the wrought iron fence is similar to a variance that was approved a couple of years back, about the same location, and is an extension of that existing fence. Staff is recommending approval of the project and is available for any questions. Thank you.
Well, I call up the applicant, Daniel Rolfe.
So I guess I'd like to go over just briefly the 4 different findings associated with this. The first finding is that there's a strict application, that the strict application of the provisions of the ordinance would result in some practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship inconsistent with the general purposes intended of the ordinance. Because of the extreme variances in topology, where there's like 82 feet from the top of the property to the bottom, and there's about a 20 to 22 foot drop just on the back end of the property down to Brockmont. It causes some real practical difficulties and unnecessary hardships for the owner of the property. We believe originally that there was a wall coming all the way down behind the property, and at some point it failed and the tail end of it disappeared. We don't know what happened. It was before the current owner, because there was a retaining wall at that height all the way down, except for the last probably 20 feet of the property. And that has already, through prior permits, been decorated nicely with stucco, etc. The hardships, some of the hardships we're experiencing is loss of property. It's calving off and falling below, which can hurt people below. And also the owner of the property has 2 small children. That is their play area, and there's nothing to retain them or hold them, so they have the ability to fall off 22 feet from the edge of that, because there's no fence and or retaining wall there. So if it were to calve off with them on it, it would cause some problems. So it's definitely a hardship on the owner. There are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved or to the intended use or development of property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zone or neighborhood. And the main issue there is the differences in elevation. The road drops off. When it was cut, they cut the slope, and it's a sheer slope almost straight down. I don't believe most of the other properties in the area have similar topology where you have a 20-foot drop off the back of your yard. The granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in such zone or neighborhood in which the property is located. We believe that it's necessary to protect the slope in the yard because it is calving. We think it's necessary to provide safety for the children that play in the backyard. You know, if they were standing in that area and it calved off, they would go down with it. And we also think it'll benefit the surroundings because right now they have dirt that's sloughing off and just, calving and laying at the bottom. And we had many nice comments about the stucco work that was completed on the prior wall, and people really like that, so we're just looking to extend that down. So we think it would both benefit the surroundings and is also necessary to protect. The final finding is the granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. And the ordinance, really what we're trying to do is prevent slope failure and damage and provide safety. So I think the ordinance is designed to do the same thing. So we think it's in conjunction with the principles or thoughts of the ordinance. We know there are some recommended conditions of approval, and we have reviewed those and have agreed to all the conditions of approval.
Thank you. Seth Briskman.
My name is Seth Briskman. I'm the designer for the project and some of the improvements that we've done on the property. A couple of points that I wanted to kind of reinforce is that this is a very unique property that exists in the area. It's a flag lot that comes down almost onto a peninsula, let's call it, that overlooks onto Brockmont. Portions of the original property definitely have retaining walls that were cut in for this road at the beginning of when they parcelized this area. We believe that there was an existing retaining wall there, but what we are experiencing now is that the safety factor of this area could be compromised as it had been up on Kempton. When the owner first moved in, there's a similar peninsula lot just above his property that maybe has about a 14 or 15 foot drop off of their property. During the rains and what occurred about 5 years ago, that sloughed off onto the road, and they had road barricades and stuff like that there for about a year and a half before it was improved. What the owner wants to do here is thwart that off. We do have an El Nino year coming on, so it is kind of urgent that they want to take care of this and repair that area, not for the general use of their property, but also for the safety of Brockmont down below. For that road to fail, it could probably, with the height of it, slough off and close off Brockmont until it gets repaired. A couple other instances of why this would not, the strict application of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties. The retaining wall design ordinance, which has been implemented across Los Angeles and other areas over the recent years, was really a result of a lot of people trying to create new land for themselves. And I know in areas like Beverly Hills and Bel Air, they were building walls somewhere in excess of 35 feet. So at that time, what Los Angeles had done was created several setbacks to make it more appeasing to the neighbors in the area around. In this instance, if that was to be implemented, not only would it take away usable land that he already has, but it would probably, if you look at the section behind you, it would start to compromise the other plateaus that are also continuing up into the property because of the required setbacks as you go back for each level of retaining wall that you would need to construct. Structurally speaking, our engineer does not want to disturb the existing hill, which is why the wall is built in front of the existing hill and then infilling, as opposed to starting to compromise what's been there for many years. That's all my comments. Thanks.
Okay. Just a couple questions. So, the wall that you're proposing is right here, and there currently is not a wall there now.
There's not a wall there now. We don't have any historic records that prove that there was a wall there. But the way the property is parcelized, current retaining wall stops at one of the parcels.
So this, sorry, we may not be.
No calls, thanks.
Got it.
So what you're saying is this lot currently is all of these parcels, and the wall maybe stops at this one.
Correct.
I see. Which is that could answer why there's a wall here now, and the other lot didn't have a wall, and it's this area here, and that's where you want to install the wall.
That's where we want to install the wall. I mean, we make an assumption that when they parcelized the area out, that nobody really thought that this may have been developed or whatnot. But when the original owner who built the house, Peter Dam, who developed the property, situated his house more towards the eastern side of the property, but then eventually developed the pool in the other areas on the western side of the property.
Okay. What's this dimension from where the land sort of ends to where you want to propose the wall?
It varies. In some cases, it's probably about 5 feet, and I think it tapers down as we come closer to the western side of the property.
Okay, so at most it's 5 feet wide?
I would...
This dimension?
Yeah, without getting back onto the survey, I would say it's between 5 feet and 6 feet max.
Okay, and what's the existing condition out there now?
There's a... chain link fence there?
There's just a green.
You need to talk into the mic.
It's a chain link fence with a screen on it. Right.
But that's at the top of the hill.
That's at the top.
Hold on a second. We have to have everybody talking to the mic.
So there may be chain link, I'm not sure, but there's also a green landscape cloth in front of the area, and it's tied, and it's kind of flimsy. You're right.
There's something at this area.
Chain link
fence with a wind screen on it.
That's kind of hanging with the windscreen. And just as another note, the front edge of that is in line with where the other wall ends. So we're not moving it out because of adding property. It's because the other wall starts there, and we need to tie into the other wall. So to tie into the other wall, we had to pull it out to that level.
Okay, and then that folds into my next question. The retaining wall's here, and all this will be fill. Was there a reason why you couldn't put the wall here, and then the wall would need to jog out a little bit to tie into the existing wall?
Part of it is
Do you
structural
understand what I'm saying?
because that fill isn't just fill, it's slurry, which is concrete, and it's to add the strength and support to the wall. So,
I mean, also structurally speaking, if you look at this section, what we're trying not to do is to disturb the existing hill. So the base of the footing, the L footing that goes back towards the hill,
This.
correct, would not be disturbing or undermining the existing bedrock that is sitting there, bedrock and rock and dirt.
trying to avoid any destruction to the existing slope. And if you look at it, that slope comes down to a point, so we'd have to excavate and pull back in order to move the wall back.
This.
And then it's going to be more work to tie it into the existing wall, yes.
This area. So if you put it here,
If you put it there, you have to cut back into the hill probably 3 to 4 feet to actually construct the wall, put in the drainage, put in the correct systems behind the wall, waterproofing, all of those.
because otherwise the wall is going to fail.
Well, not just that,
Or-
but you're going to start to compromise the integrity of what's there right now. So you'll be pulling away bedrock, and you'll be starting to cut away the hill. It just becomes a much more dangerous operation for construction.
And I think it's important to realize that that fill isn't dirt fill, it is concrete, so we're slurry behind there.
Yeah, it says provide slurry fill.
Right,
So-
which is concrete.
Okay.
So it's to add more strength to that wall so it doesn't, so if we pull back into the wall, we don't get as much concrete there, and we're going to have it re-engineered.
Okay, so it's not simply, even though the bedrock is here, you can't just install a retaining wall here to keep this back.
You can. It becomes a very difficult operation, construction-wise.
Because you'd have to tear out some of the bedrock?
You'd be tearing out the hill, and you'd be compromising what's there.
And you wouldn't have as much slurry to support it.
Okay. And is this about the minimum?
Yeah, I mean, that drawing is a snapshot along the length
Right,
of the wall.
30
So I think we're
whatever
showing
feet.
probably the worst-case scenario in that.
Okay, all right. And the wrought iron fence that's on top of the existing retaining wall now, further here, down the property here, the retaining wall or the wrought iron wall that or fence that you're proposing is similar to that, and it's going to just meet up with that.
Because it's a historical property, the fence meets the historical design, et cetera, so that fence would be duplicated and carried down.
Okay. And I don't know if you can see this. Is this the fence right here?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, and this represents the new.
We're trying to clean it up and make it almost as if that was the intent from.
We
Okay.
wouldn't have the unsightly wrought iron, unsightly chain link up there anymore. It'd be nice and look really nice. And then when they finish the outside of the wall, it would match the other one to make the whole presentation look nice.
Okay, and the wall that's existing now, the proposed wall is going to be the same sort of material?
Yes.
Yeah, the existing wall that was there was a block wall, somewhat unsightly. What the owner had done a couple years ago was to enhance that and beautify the Brockmont facade of the property, so to say. And we would just want to continue that out. As Dan said, we've definitely received a lot of compliments from people walking and whatnot, just saying how much it looks better.
Okay. And landscaping proposed in front of the fence or in front of the retaining wall?
Similar to what is currently on Brockmont in front of the existing wall.
Okay. And the existing foliage there now is going to be ripped out?
Was it 10 or 12 trees that are sitting there?
The portocarpus would have to
Yeah.
be removed to put the
Okay.
footings in.
Okay.
But it's
At the request of the commission, we can certainly look to replant. That's what they're looking for.
So it's basically right in here.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have for now. All right. We have one more speaker card, Donald Zachary.
Good morning. My name is Donald Zachary, and I live at 371 Brockmont, the property immediately adjacent on the west side to where the wall is going to be built.
Oh, okay.
The architect, I'm sorry, I didn't catch his name, was being modest. The wall that was there originally was ugly, and we were astonished and amazed when the owner came in and redid the wall and made it beautiful. And
So you're talking about... You're talking about the wall that's existing now.
Exactly.
Here.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the owner can't see it. His property is above.
Right.
So unless he or his family come around, so it's to the total benefit of the neighbors and the neighborhood what he's done. We, in particular, because we live next door, are completely in favor of this addition because, as Mr. Rolfe and the architect said, it will stabilize the hill, which will affect us because if that hill starts to deteriorate, our hillside is going to go and it's going to come right into our property.
How long have you lived in
We've
your house?
bought the house in 1987.
Okay. Do you ever recall seeing a retaining wall where there is none now?
None. I can't remember one ever being there, but there may have been one there before. So this proposed project will be to the benefit of the neighborhood. And let me last speak to the wrought iron fence. Because of the way the property is sloped and the height of it, it affects the neighborhood not one iota. So in this instance, we think safety trumps all concerns because it doesn't affect us. At an angle, the angle we are, we can't see it. And we certainly hope that the owner will be allowed to put plants back in if they are required to remove any, because it just makes it prettier and helps protect us from runoff. We built on our property a retaining wall in 1990, and it's completely filled in. This is decomposed granite, and it's constantly sloughing off. So without the steps that the owner is taking, this hillside eventually may be impacted, and we think he's doing a good thing.
So you're over here.
Yes, sir.
And I'm assuming, based on the photos and when I've been out to the site, you're at a slightly lower Brockmont, goes sort
Correct.
of down?
It's coming downhill and...
Okay. All right.
Very good.
Thanks.
Unless you have any other questions. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak on the project? Nobody? Okay. Do either one of the applicants or applicant representatives want another 3 minutes to say anything they didn't say, or no? Okay. I don't have any other questions, so I will close the public hearing, and the hearing is now officially closed. Thank you for coming, and it is 10:02 on November 5th. Thank you.